When it comes to three-row luxury SUVs, Infiniti has had a relatively competitive offering in the space known as the QX60. Remember, this car started out life as the JX35 introduced back in 2013, and since then this car has grown to become Infiniti's best-selling model, with the company moving over 40,000 units annually. Now, back in 2022, we finally saw an all-new second generation introducing all-new styling on the outside, a redesigned interior with some new tech features, and a new transmission that pairs nicely with that naturally aspirated 3.5-liter V6. So as you can see this week, Infiniti has loaned us the latest version of the QX60. This is the 2024 Autograph trim, which is the fully loaded version. We're going to live with this car for a full week. We're going to put it through our usual battery of tests. At the end of this video, we're going to see, has Infiniti managed to keep this model fresh in a segment that is always filled with new competitors? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the exterior styling of this 2024 QX60, I thought I'd pop the hood and show you guys what's powering this thing. Now, unlike some competitors which offer a choice of several different powertrain options, Infiniti keeps it simple here with just one engine, a naturally aspirated 3.5-liter V6. Now, if you guys have spent some time with the all-new Pathfinder, this is essentially the same engine with a slightly different tune designed to run on premium fuel. This is, of course, the VQ engine, which has been in production for like 30, almost 40 years now. It's a 3.5-liter naturally aspirated direct injection V6 that puts out 295 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque. Now, if you're keeping score, that is around 11 more horsepower versus the same engine in the Nissan Pathfinder, where it's designed to run on regular gas. This is designed to run on premium. However, if you guys buy a Pathfinder Rock Creek, it has the same output as this model, so technically this engine is no longer exclusive to the Infiniti version of this platform. It all goes out through a new 9-speed automatic transmission. That is the same transmission that is built and sourced by ZF, so it replaces the old Jatco CVT transmission, the previous generation, and you can take your pick between either front-wheel drive or the company's intelligent all-wheel drive system, which has an automatic setting where it allows you to switch power from the front to the rear. Fuel economy is rated at 20 in the city, 25 on the highway. That's on premium fuel, like I said. It has an 18.5-gallon fuel tank, which means you're looking at around 400 to 430 miles of range, depending on if you're driving in mostly city or highway conditions. Nissan or Infiniti doesn't quote a 0 to 60 time. The quickest time we got was in the mid 6.5-second range for this platform mate, the Pathfinder. We'll see what we can get out in the real world with this car. It should have a top speed of just around 130-ish miles per hour. And the beauty about this architecture is it does tow a little bit more than its competitors. This one here will tow a maximum of 6,000 pounds. If you guys go for the tow package, as this car sits, it weighs in at just over 4,600 pounds. So it weighs around the same as a lot of its main Japanese three-row rivals. But let's go ahead and close up the hood and talk about the exterior styling of this car. Now, it's been on the market for a couple years now, almost, and this car first was introduced as the QX60 monograph a few years ago, where it was shown as a concept. That was essentially almost a production-ready car. The production version of the QX60 looks pretty much identical to that QX60 monograph. You can see my tester has this really beautiful metallic paint called Bordeaux Reserve. It's a really nice dark burgundy red, and you can see all QX60 models come standard with the company's full LED headlights. They are a projector and reflector style where it's an LED low and high beam. You have an LED daytime running light, LED turn signals, some fake vents here, along with the large Infiniti grille. My tester also has the Radiance lighting package where it also gives you a lit up Infiniti logo. The latest Infiniti grille definitely looks nice. I kind of like how the headlights kind of go into the actual grille itself. It's a little bit more squared off. It's a little bit more angular, but also still curvy. You can see there are some nicely integrated parking sensors. The radar sensor for the cruise control is down there. And then I also like how Infiniti has, instead of doing like a chrome trim, they do like a painted gloss gray trim, which kind of just looks a little bit classier. It also spells out Infiniti down here. So obviously, in terms of the design, it has some distinctive Infiniti design cues, unlike the Pathfinder, which has more of a truckish appearance. The Infiniti goes with a more car-like, kind of like swoopy or curvy, but still a little bit more angular appearance versus the previous generation. Now, this car is built on a modified version of the previous architecture. Infiniti essentially just strengthened it. They added a little more structural adhesive. It has the same 114.2-inch long wheelbase. It has an overall length of 198.2. It's around an inch longer versus the Pathfinder on which it's based, but it's also around an inch and a half shorter than the previous generation, and it's about 2 inches taller and an inch wider. So again, it's going to give you a little bit better interior space and nicer proportions. You can see these are the 20-inch wheels that you get with the autograph trim. You can also get an 18-inch wheel as the base wheel. These are riding on a 255 by 50 R20 tire. It's got a Hankook tire that's an all-season tire. You have a 13.8-inch brake rotor in the front, a 13-inch rotor at the rear, four-wheel independent suspension, but Infiniti does not offer any kind of adaptive dampers or air suspension. You also have just over 7 inches of ground clearance. There's some unpainted wheel arch trim here to give you, again, that more SUV look. But overall, let me know what you guys think of the exterior styling. I definitely think this is an improvement over the previous generation. I just don't know if it looks better than the Pathfinder or the MDX. Some would say this is better looking than the Lexus TX. That's a new competitor from Lexus, but the Lexus is significantly larger. This is also about the same size as an Acura MDX, but about 5 inches shorter than a Lexus TX. Now, being that this is the autograph trim, it also comes with that two-tone roof design where you have a black painted roof. You have power folding mirrors with integrated turn signals. You have a full 360 camera. There's also a standard panoramic sunroof that also opens. That's standard on every trim of the QX60. You have some chrome along the window trim, of course. And then looking at this profile here, this is where I think the car looks a little bit nicer than the previous generation because of the boxier proportions. Like I said earlier, it's a relatively handsome looking SUV. Looking at the rear, you can see you're not going to forget it's an Infiniti with the big Infiniti logo. You have full LED taillights with kind of like a smoke finish here for the reverse lights and the taillights themselves. You can see they're almost like a full length. However, this right here is just a black trim piece. Like I said earlier, it spells out Infiniti at the back. There's an integrated rear spoiler back here, along with a digital camera, rearview mirror. There's a rear wiper here, along with your badging. This is how you know you have an all-wheel drive version via the badge. I'm surprised Infiniti doesn't offer kind of like a blackout emblem package. However, compared to the one that I tested a year ago, you can see the chrome that had these fake exhaust, that was trimming the fake exhaust pieces here, has now been painted a gloss gray, which I like. Their actual muffler is underneath the passenger side. It's tucked away. You can see my tester also has the tow package. So overall, it's unoffensive, but it's also not super distinctive. Now, opening up the cargo area, Infiniti puts the button right here next to the camera for the backup camera to open up the tailgate. And compared to its competitors, this is where the QX60 does have less versus the new Lexus TX. You're looking at just under 15 cubic feet of total storage space with the third row seat up. Remember, the third row in this car only seats 2 as opposed to 3 in the Pathfinder. If you look underneath here, you can see there is some underfloor storage, which is nice. What's interesting about this car, a lot of the luxury brands have a power folding third row. As you can see, this car, there are buttons here, but if you want to fold down the third row, you actually have to do it manually. It's not hard. You basically just pull that or lower the head restraint, pull this right here. You can see, fold that down. It expands the cargo to just over 41 cubic feet. If you fold down the second row, which my tester has captain's chairs, you'll have a maximum of 75 cubic feet. Now, that is a little bit more versus the MDX, but it's around 23 cubic feet less versus the Lexus TX. So keep that in mind if you guys are looking for the most space. What's interesting about this car, if you want to fold the seats back up, push that button here, you can see the seats will they'll power when they come back up, but if you want to fold them down, they are manual. It's interesting how Infiniti gives you that, you know, two-step process, or that option. You can also fold the seats or recline the seats slightly in the third row. I kind of wish it was just powered down, but some people, I guess, would prefer it to be fold down manually because it's just easier that way. But overall, as you guys can see, the cargo area is still usable, but it's not quite as large as its competitors or even the Nissan Pathfinder. So now let's move on to the interior of this QX60 in the fully loaded autograph trim. Let me first show you guys the key fob. You can see this is the Infiniti Intelligent Access key. It's essentially the same key that you find on a lot of the Nissan products, with, of course, the Infiniti logo, a little bit more chrome and silver trim. It does include your usual buttons here for lock, unlock, power liftgate, panic, and you also have remote start from the actual fob, which is a nice touch. This is an old key, but I have to say it is effective. It feels high quality, and it's not too large and cumbersome like some competitors have gotten with their massive key fobs. Now, as you can see here, approaching the vehicle, you can see it has a traditional door handle with some chrome trim. There's a little area here where if I touch that, it locks the door for you. And then if you want to unlock the door, you touch the back of the door handle here. That's what will unlock the door for you. Now, looking at the rest of the interior, you can see my tester here has the black semi-aniline perforated diamond quilted stitching leather. This is included when you guys go for the autograph trim. All the other trims of the QX60 will have a faux leather or a non-semi-aniline leather. You can also take your pick between either a beige or a saddle tan brown interior. I also have the open pore wood. You can see the door panel here has some nice soft touch material materials where this is actually leather with some actual stitching. It's got that black open pore wood, which is nice. Some aluminum trim here, stitching with leather, of course. Down here you can see window controls. They're the same one that Nissan uses with some metal accents. They are one touch for all four. Your power window controls are here along with your power fold mirror controls. You have a 17 speaker Bose stereo system that's included with the sensory trim and up. It sounds good if you guys are an audiophile. You can see more leather here. It's all hard touch plastic here. You can see there's some storage over here. There's also a lit up Infiniti kick plate. And the seats, you can see they are power adjusting. They offer 14 different ways of adjustability along with two-person memory on the driver and on the passenger side. These seats are also heated and ventilated. It's another reason to go with the luxury trim at least. That includes the climate controlled front seats along with the massage function. You can see there's a button here that turns on the massage. I believe there are 4 different levels of massage. Now getting inside, this vehicle has a nice easy step in height because of the 7 inches or so of ground clearance. As I get in and shut the door, the door has a nice solid sounding thunk. It doesn't offer a soft close feature, but it gives you a nice impression of quality. Now, getting inside the vehicle and starting it up, Infiniti puts the start stop button right here by the shifter. Starting the vehicle up, you can see this is not a hybrid or a mild hybrid, so it has a traditional starter noise with the V6. The V6 itself, it has a nice sound. I mean, you guys should be familiar with this engine. Nissan and Infiniti have been using it for decades now. Now, looking at the rest of the interior, you can see the steering wheel is basically a variation of the steering wheel used in the Pathfinder. I like the flat bottom design. I like the high quality leather with the contrasting stitching. You have paddles on the wheel for the 9-speed auto. You have buttons, actual hard buttons, not touch buttons here to control that, to control your Pro Pilot Assist, the adaptive cruise. There's also a power tilt telescoping function for the wheel. You can't get that in the Pathfinder, which is nice. You have some real open pore black ash wood. And then you can see here on this upper portion of the dash, it is soft touch injection molded plastic with some faux stitching. It looks real. There's also a heads up display that is standard on the autograph trim, optional on the sensory trim, some piano black plastic. I love this area here where you have kind of like the diamond quilting and the contrasting stitching. This is real leather covering the dash. That definitely looks more upscale versus the Pathfinder in which it's based. Looking at the infotainment system here, you can see you have a 12.3-inch touchscreen. Now that touchscreen is standard equipment on all QX60s. This model here, as you can see, also includes wireless Apple CarPlay. However, Android Auto is connected via a wired connection, so don't love that. But this screen is around 3 inches larger versus the screen that you get in the Pathfinder. Right now, Nissan tops out the Pathfinder at a 9-inch display. You also have this larger 12.3-inch infotainment display where you can slightly customize the way this looks. You can see I can change the meter view to kind of show you a more futuristic view where it shows you the I guess the driver assistance function. You can also kind of go over and show your audio information, navigation, vehicle information, trip computer. That definitely looks cool. I personally prefer the view of the more traditional 2-dial look, but again, it's nice that Infiniti gives you the fully digital display on this vehicle as standard equipment. You can see more leather stitching around here on the dashboard, which is nice with the contrasting stitching. You have some air vents here, which I don't particularly love the way they feel. They feel a little bit cheap when you start adjusting the air vents, but it's overall not too bad. You have a very interesting touch sensitive panel here with piano black plastic trim. You can see, push that button, it turns on the climate control. You have tri-zone climate control. You have your heated and cooled seat function. You can see it's actually a touch sensitive button. You have an actual volume knob here, and then you can see down here is your wireless phone charging pad. Your drive mode selector is here. There's 4 different drive modes between a personal, sport, auto, and eco mode. If I push this button over here, you can see that brings up the massage function. If you guys want, you can also go back here and you can adjust the massage function in the actual display here. I don't love how you can't take up the Apple CarPlay as a full screen. You can see when it's in the CarPlay mode, there's a lot of unused area here. I kind of wish that you could make this full screen, get rid of this if you want, but Infiniti doesn't allow you to do that. So that's something that I think the company needs to work on in terms of a software update. This controls the 9-speed auto. There's a trigger button here. If I push this up while holding it, it goes into reverse. There's your full surround view 360 camera with moving object detection, with rear automatic braking, cross traffic alert and whatnot. That's actually standard equipment. The 360 camera has decent quality and resolution, but it's definitely not as nice as what you're going to find in some of the European or even Japanese competitors. You can see electronic parking brake here. If you don't want to touch the screen, you can actually go into or using this little dial here, which is fine. In terms of ambient lighting, the Sensory and Up trim has an upgraded ambient lighting, but I have to say the ambient lighting is disappointing. You can't change the color, you can only change the brightness. It's kind of like a soft yellow hue to it, versus some competitors allow you to change the color and just have more intricate ambient lighting, so this is a little bit disappointing. Down here you can see in the center console you have cup holders, some aluminum trim, more leather stitching along this panel here, which is definitely a lot nicer feeling than what you find in some of the Pathfinder. Open this up, you can see you have a pretty decent storage area where it's it gives you some covered space. This is a nice padded area here. You can see the seats. For the most part, this is the semi-aniline leather. They are comfortable. The seats are supportive, but I don't love the head restraint. It just feels really hard as a rock. Competitors like the MDX and the TX Lexus, for me, have softer seats. Since this is the upgraded leather, I expected the seats to be a little bit nicer. The massage function works well. It kind of gives you a lumbar massage or a refresh massage. It's not as nice as the massage in the MDX, however, or some of the European offerings, but at least it offers a massage because you can't get that in the Lexus. You can see the glove compartment is damped and lined with felt. It's a bin style. It offers a pretty good amount of storage inside as well. You can see you have some ambient, or you have some LED map lighting in here. You have that digital camera review mirror, which you can just go to a standard review mirror. This is standard on the autograph trim, optional on the Sensory. That's a nice feature to have if you actually put stuff, a lot of stuff in the back and whatnot. You can see there's a power retractable shade, which is nice, and the sunroof also opens up completely to allow you to have some actual fresh air, which is a nice touch. There's a woven material on the headliner, but overall, the interior definitely feels a touch more upscale versus what you get in the Pathfinder. However, I worry when Nissan upgrades the Pathfinder with a refresh, they're gonna give it that bigger display. So for me personally, I do think Infiniti has a little bit more work to do to make this interior feel even nicer, but overall, it's still a relatively nice place to spend time. Moving to the back seat of the QX60, you can see this trim here comes standard with captain's chairs, which does reduce the seating capacity to 6, because unlike the Pathfinder, this car only seats 2 in the actual third row. So I personally would go for the Sensory trim, get the bench instead, because the captain's chairs do limit your seating capacity again to 6. Now, in terms of the rear materials here on the door panel, it's the same leather with the actual stitching on the actual upper portion. Same thing down here. High quality window controls, you know, the Bose stereo system. You have this manual retractable shade, which is definitely nice. That beautiful black open pore wood, hard touch plastic down here. And then in terms of the space, you can see Infiniti says you have around 37.7 inches of legroom back here as I get in and shut the door. For me personally, this is where I'd have the seat to drive. The seat is all the way back, and this has a pretty good amount of space. You can see there's a flat floor here in the second, or in the middle seat if you do have the bench seat. And you can see back here, you also have your own set of rear climate controls. It offers a tri-zone climate control along with heated rear seats. No cooled seats, however. There's a button for a cooled seat if you guys, want that feature. But surprisingly, Infiniti doesn't offer it here in the US. Lexus offers a cooled seat in the second row now. Acura, however, does not. You can see you have 2 storage cubbies. This little console area here, this does come out just like in the Pathfinder. You can take this panel off. It'll pop right out, which is definitely nice. The seats, they do recline, and you can also slide the seats forward and back to give the third row passengers more space. You're gonna wanna do that because I'll get into the third row in a second to show you guys the space. This is with the third row, or the second row slid up a little bit more. You can see this is where the space is. It's definitely compromised. Compared to its competitors, the second row has probably around 3 inches of less legroom, so kind of keep that in mind. You do have features like 2 USB charging ports, an actual power outlet, which is nice, and I like, again, the panel here to control the climate control, and you have your rear seat air vents in the ceiling. Now, let me go ahead and get into the back seat to show you guys the third row space. Now, Infiniti basically gives you 2 buttons you can push. You have to either push this button or push the button here on the back for the passenger, or the third row passenger. Push that button here, you can see the seat catapults forward, and which is a nice feature to have because this allows you to essentially keep a child seat latched into the second row and still give you that access to get into the third row. That's a unique feature in this space. But once you get back here, I have to say the space back here is not wonderful. Now, Infiniti says you get around 28 inches of legroom back here. Now, 28 inches for me, this is with the seat all the way back. You can see my knees are up against the actual seat back themselves. There's no middle seat here, although you could put one here, but Infiniti instead gives you like a little place where you can put your phone. There's no seatbelt anchor, of course. They do that for comfort. The MDX offers around 1 inch more legroom back here. The Lexus TX offers around 5 more inches of legroom back here, so kind of keep that in mind. In terms of the headroom space, you can see for somebody my height, my hair is actually touching the ceiling, so I'm pretty cramped back here. I'd have to ask this passenger to move the seat forward forward to give me more space, but I could sit back here for maybe an hour, just as long as they move the seat up. You can see there is a USB charging port back here. You do have rear seat air vents. That's something the MDX and the Audi Q7 doesn't have. But overall, this is where the Infiniti is starting to show its age. Some of the competitors offer more rear seat space or third row seat space. So if you need to actually put full-size adults back here, you might want to check out some of its rivals, more specifically, the new Lexus TX. Now, as the best-selling vehicle in the Infiniti North American lineup, you better believe the QX60 is a super important car for Infiniti. And when I last drove this vehicle, it was about a year and a half ago when I finally got a chance to spend a week with the redesigned version of the QX60. Now, of course, I've had a chance to drive this car's competitors for a week, more specifically the Acura MDX, and of course the all-new Lexus TX. So where does that leave the QX60? Well, if you guys really like the Nissan Pathfinder, you're going to find plenty to like about the QX60. It essentially shares the same architecture. It's about the same size. It has a different look on the outside, different interior. It has the same 3.5-liter V6 as the Pathfinder Rock Creek that I tested a couple months ago, along with the new 9-speed ZF-sourced automatic. Now, the last time I tested this vehicle in the Pathfinder, or the engine in the Pathfinder, it got 6.4 seconds. Let's go ahead and see what we can get in the QX60, which essentially has the same powertrain. So we have it in sport mode right now. We'll go ahead and brake torque it. Remember, this vehicle is all-wheel drive. Pretty smooth engine. And we got 6.7 seconds there. Now, I will notice, or I did notice that there's a little bit of hesitation off the line. When you brake torque this vehicle, I don't think it actually likes being brake torqued. There's no launch control, whatever. So I'll try it again up ahead a couple more times. This time I won't brake torque it, I'll just floor it. But 6.7 is about 0.3 seconds slower than the Pathfinder Rock Creek that I tested on that same stretch a couple months ago. It is about a half a second faster versus the Lexus TX with the turbocharged 2.4-liter engine. So that is very good performance. This should keep pace, of course, with the base V6 that you'll find in the Acura MDX, the base version, not the Type S that I tested a couple months ago, which will do it in about 5.5 seconds. But we'll go ahead and try it here really quick. We'll just floor it from a stop. This is slightly more uphill. Definitely feels faster when you don't brake torque it. It actually will slip the front tires slightly, even though this model is all-wheel drive. 6.95 there, so slightly more uphill. I'll try it one more time up ahead if we can get a decent stretch of road. But that time is not necessarily why people buy a vehicle like this, but it's good to know where this car fits compared to its competitors. I mean, if you guys are used to a naturally aspirated V6 with a stepped automatic, this 9-speed is the same one from ZF, and I have to say this transmission was absolute garbage when it first came out about, I want to say, almost a decade ago. But Honda, of course, uses this transmission, FCA, and then now Nissan. Nissan and Infiniti have done a pretty good job of tuning the transmission. I mean, there are times where I notice it has slight hesitation when you put your foot down trying to get it to, you know, drop a couple of gears. But when it does shift, it has quicker shifts. It feels smooth as well. And this is such a huge improvement over the old CVT transmission that the old QX60 used to use, along with the Pathfinder. So in terms of driving, this car has a solid powertrain, although it is starting to look a little bit dated because there's no form of electrification, there's no turbo engine, there's no hybrid option. Again, those are features that Lexus offers in the TX, which is nice. Acura offers a V6 and a turbo V6 in the MDX. The European models, of course, have their mild hybrid engines and some plug-in hybrid options as well. Now, in terms of handling, the QX60 is definitely not sporty, but it's also competent. This is built off of a modified D architecture that it also shares with the Pathfinder. The one thing this car lacks, however, is no adaptive dampers. Infiniti doesn't offer that at any price point on the QX60, and I think they should, especially at this price point. Put my foot down here, you can feel the rear trying to get some power from the all-wheel drive system. It doesn't have the full torque vectoring capabilities of, let's say, the super handling all-wheel drive in the MDX, or the TX has better, side-to-side torque distribution. This car feels primarily front-wheel drive until the front wheels slip, and it will try to send power to the rear, but it's not quite as aggressive or sporty as what you'd feel in something like its competitors. Even the Pathfinder Rock Creek, I believe, is slightly better. But we'll try it here one more time. We'll just floor it this time, no brake torquing it. Nice sound from that engine. Shifts at almost 6,200 RPM, 6.6 there, so that's the quickest time, a little bit faster versus when we brake torqued it. It's about 0.2 seconds slower than the Pathfinder, which is disappointing, but that time should be acceptable, and it is, again, faster versus the 2.4-liter turbo version of the Lexus TX, but you guys heard that. The front tires slipped there and I barely touched the accelerator. Again, reminding you this car is primarily front-wheel drive. But we'll go ahead and put the drive mode selector into just its auto mode. I had it in sport mode earlier. There's 4 different drive modes, including an eco mode. And this is where most people are going to drive this vehicle. It has a decent ride quality, although the 20s on this car, I noticed over some rougher roads, it crashed a little bit over bumps. It doesn't feel quite as premium as some of its competitors. I mean, when I first drove this car, I thought it felt really luxurious. Now I've had a chance to spend some time with the Pathfinder, of course, and its other Japanese rivals and the European rivals, and this is where the QX60 is starting to show its Nissan roots a little bit too much. I mean, I understand that the Lexus and the Acura also have more plebeian Honda and Toyota routes, but I think the other brands just do a better job of hiding that. This car, to me, feels a little bit too much like a Nissan. Now, I will say that I'm sitting here getting a massage in these seats, and it's nice. It's not quite as nice as the massage function that you'll feel in some Volvo or Acura or BMW or Mercedes products, but it's nice that Infiniti offers it. You can't get a massaging seat on the Lexus version. And then in terms of quietness, this car does have some good isolation. I don't really hear much in terms of road wind noise, or the engine makes itself known when you start pushing it, but it is going to be a great road trip car. It also has great visibility all around. My tester, being the fully loaded autograph, also has that digital camera review mirror. It has Infiniti's full suite of driver assistance tech, although it is optional. If you want adaptive cruise and traffic jam assistance, you have to go for at least the luxury trim versus the base version. Some competitors make it standard even on all versions of their luxury-oriented models. But overall, it's still a nice vehicle to drive. I fear that in a year or so, this car is going to start feeling a little bit dated, especially if you guys are looking for better fuel efficiency. In terms of that, this car, in my week's worth of testing, averaged around 22.5 mpg in mixed driving. Now, 22.5 is about what the EPA pegs this vehicle at. It's rated at 2025. It'll do about 400 to 450 miles of range on a full tank, depending on if you're driving mostly highway or not. On the highway, I got around 24 mpg, so not wonderful. You're going to get better MPG in the Lexus TX, or something like a BMW X5 or X7 will do better MPG. So this is where I hope Infiniti has some kind of electrification powertrain planned up their sleeves. I mean, the company is definitely falling behind its competitors in terms of technology, in terms of just competitiveness. This car, as it is now, is perfectly competent. It just doesn't stand out in the way that it should, considering this is a luxury brand. I mean, to me, you could also buy a fully loaded version of a Nissan Pathfinder Platinum, and it comes pretty darn close to what this car offers. I mean, yes, this car has the bigger screen, it has the massaging seats, it has nicer leather materials. Speaking of these seats, they are relatively comfortable, but you have this rock-hard head restraint that I don't love. Considering this is the semi-aniline upgraded leather, I think the leather seats could be softer still. This is where I noticed the Acura or the Lexus version or competitor offers even more plusher seats versus the Infiniti, which is a little bit disappointing. But overall, I think this car is still a solid choice, especially if you guys, plan to carry, car seats in the second row because of that, feature where it allows you to flip the seat forward with car seats still latched. But other than that, I find very little reason for me personally to choose this car unless you have a soft spot for Infiniti and Nissan products, and you happen to like the styling of this car, and you happen to get a great deal from your local Infiniti dealership. So after spending a full week with the latest version of the Infiniti QX60, as you guys see, this is still a relatively competitive offering out there, especially if you're looking for a model that doesn't overwhelm you with tech features like some of its competitors. This is definitely still based off of the Nissan Pathfinder, and after living with a week, I kind of question, has Infiniti differentiated this car enough from a Pathfinder? I mean, obviously, it has its own unique look on the outside, and on the inside, it has slightly nicer materials. The 3.5-liter V6 delivers solid acceleration in the mid 6.5-second range. It's quicker than a Lexus TX, but in the real world, most people are going to find the turbo 4-cylinder engines or the turbocharged engines to have better actual real-world performance. There are times where I just have to push this V6 hard to get it to actually accelerate, which also has it produce a little bit too much noise. The Acura NDX also has that same issue. But for those of you who want a naturally aspirated V6, this is one of the few competitors out there. In terms of practicality, the interior certainly has some nice materials. It has some decent storage. It has good space in the second row. The third row is definitely looking cramped. The cargo area is looking smaller than its competitors. But overall, the QX60 is still a solid choice. I still believe that it's going to start feeling dated within the next year or so, especially when Nissan updates the Pathfinder and gives it that larger 12-inch display that the Infiniti has, because the Pathfinder has a smaller 9-inch display. Now, if you are looking to purchase this vehicle, the good news about the QX60 is it is a little bit less expensive versus its rivals. Pricing for the 2024 base pure version with two-wheel drive starts at just under $50,000, around $49,600. That's about $6,000 less expensive than the new Lexus TX. It's about the same starting price as the Acura MDX. Of course, Nissan and Infiniti, they offer 4 different trims to choose from. Most of you are going to add the luxury trim for about $6,000 extra. That'll include basically their ProPilot Assist. It'll include a 360 camera. It'll include a nicer leather on the inside, along with the Bose stereo system, the 20-inch wheels, of course. Those of you who want to step it up even further can go for the sensory trim. That's probably the one that I would go for. It's around $61,000. That includes the massaging seats and the upgraded Bose stereo system, along with the surround view 360 camera. This autograph trim that I'm showing you adds the semi-aniline leather, along with the digital camera rearview mirror, along with the two-tone look. This one here starts at around $66,000 with all-wheel drive, $64,000 with front-wheel drive, $2,000 extra if you want all-wheel drive. My tester, with the ambient lighting in the front that has the lit-up Infiniti logo and the destination charge and this color upcharge, comes in at just under $70,000. Almost 70 grand is definitely about $5,000 too expensive for me personally to pay for this vehicle. It's around $20,000 or it's around $15,000 more expensive versus the fully loaded version of the Pathfinder. It does put it in the same territory as a fully loaded version of a Lexus TX, but you could also get an Acura MDX Type S for around $70,000. You could also get a Lexus TX 500H, which has the hybrid powertrain, which has more power than this car and better efficiency, for around the same price. So for me personally, I would go for the sensory trim, add the vision package that gives you the digital camera rearview mirror, the adaptive headlights, the surround view camera system for around $64,000. I think that's a better deal. It's around $10,000 more than the Nissan, but just keep in mind, Infiniti, while it is a luxury brand, I fear that the company is going to start looking a little bit dated for this offering here in the next couple of years. So I'll be curious to see what Infiniti does when they give this car a refresh, possibly for the 2025 or 2026 model year. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2024 Infiniti QX60 in this autograph trim. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.